Well, I'm on the farm today, and I want to talk about a subject that you might be interested in, and that is cash flow on a small farm. So without a doubt, it takes money to make money. In order to make money, you have to spend money. And you have goods and services that are going out. In our case, it's hay. Some people have cattle, some people have corn, soybeans, things like that. And this video is really intended for the small farmer. We're a small farm. I have a day job. Even though we put a lot of hours in on this farm, it's still a part-time job, a part-time farm, you could say. But we are in it for the profit, and we do make money. And so we have to manage our cash flow, our revenue coming in and our revenue going out. And I want to talk about that. And when I talk about cash flow and a small farm, I can only look through my eyes and what I know, what I've seen, and what I've done personally and what I've seen others do in terms of cash flow on their farm. Nothing is free, and so if you're farming to make a profit or just to cover your expenses to break even, you have to buy equipment, just like this Massey Ferguson. You have to buy fertilizer, maybe fencing for cattle, things like that. So you have to spend money, and that's part of your cash flow. The question is, how much do you spend? And, where is a safe limit? What's your farm capable of producing? And, what kind of return are you getting on your investment? Because really, this is not rocket science. If you spend more than you make, then you're going to go in the red. And other than the federal government, small farmers don't survive too long if they're going into the red. And if they are going into the red in a bad way, it might be intentional. They might be a hobby farmer where profit really doesn't matter. They have their cows or their goats or their tractors with a new tractor with cab and AC and a front end loader, 4-wheel drive. And they could care less how much it costs and how much money they make, because being a hobby farmer, that's just kind of their deal. They got a nice day job maybe. Maybe they were left a lot of money. Who knows? But different strokes for different folks. So when you talk about cash flow on a small farm, accounting is one of the pillars of managing your cash flow. You have to know how much money's coming in. You have to know how much is going out on equipment. You have to know what's left over or what's not left over. I'd say the biggest thing to be concerned about with farm cash flow is not running out of cash. So, you can buy equipment, you can buy stuff new, you can buy it used, but the bottom line is you don't want to get yourself in a situation where you're spending everything you make and there's nothing left over. And it's okay to reinvest in your business even up to 100%, but there has to be some mechanism to generate more cash if you need it, should a breakdown arise or the need to buy another piece of equipment. And that income reserve can either be you don't spend as much as you bring in, so you got a pool of cash laying in a bank account somewhere, or you've got a nice job with some savings or what have you that you can dip into. Now, when we talk about dipping into savings or dipping into the day job income, in my mind, there are two reasons for that. One of them is capitalizing the farm with equipment. So if you're buying a John Deere baler or a John Deere tractor or whatever else, you know, you might see out in this barn, if you got money out of your operation to buy it, whether it's really old or newer or new, you know, that's great. But every business has to have capital to get it going. You can't start with nothing. You got to sink some money into equipment and land, either renting land or buying it outright. And so the money has got to come from somewhere. So in my mind, if you're investing as a capital expense, that's one thing. But if you're just willy-nilly spending money and buying tractors because they're cool and equipment and buying new equipment just because it's new, and you know, you don't have a game plan, then that gets very, very risky, and it can eat up your cash flow quickly. Another area that affects cash flow and eats into it is how much money are you going to spend on your land? And you know, fertilizing is expensive, and fertilizer prices are up, especially phosphorus. But again, if you don't have any cash flow, if all of your cash is locked up in equipment, buildings, and land, and you just, you know, you're at a place where somebody says, you know, let's go to McDonald's and get a Big Mac, and your money's calculating in your head, do I have, you know, $5 or $10, however much it is now, to get a meal, or do I need to get a Happy Meal? And so if you can manage your cash flow so that you got a certain level of cash, then when it comes time to buy fertilizer, it's no sweat. Heaven forbid, you know, if the engine blew up on this Massey Ferguson 1105, and of course the nightmare scenario is your tractor's down, you don't have enough money to get it fixed, and so, you know, how do you make your crops? You borrow somebody else's tractor, maybe that'll work out, maybe it won't. And then sometimes it snowballs because maybe you do have credit, but you don't have enough money to throw this thing in the shop because it costs $10,000, but maybe you have $4,000, and then you go out and you buy another tractor that's maybe new, or maybe you say, you know, I'll take the 0% financing for however many months it is, and you go out and buy a new tractor that's even more expensive, that locks up your cash, because now you're slave to a loan, and it's not just a little loan, it's a big one. And so it just interrupts your cash flow. And, you know, when you get to a place where it's like a creek going dry, when you get to that place with your farming, you're in danger of losing your shirt. So you want to be very careful about that. So you want to have money flowing through your farm so you can take care of these unexpected expenses. You want to keep the cash flow going. So in managing your cash flow and how much to set aside, so that at no time do your investments and day-to-day expenses cause you to consume everything. A good rule of thumb, a guy told me one time, he's a salesman at a John Deere dealership, and I consider him a friend. He's a retired dairy farmer, and I was looking at some John Deere tractors and some used ones, like a 40 or a 4240, and he said, whatever you do, when you buy the tractor, whatever the price is on it, he said, have enough money left over to make one major repair. So if the engine went out, or the clutch, or the transmission, you'd have the money to make that repair. And so you spend your money on your tractor or your mower, or you know, maybe your rake, but you haven't cashed out everything, and you still have the ability to flow cash into places where it's needed. So if you need to make the repair, you can. And so when I talk about cash flow on this farm, when I talk about cash flow on a small farm, this is what I'm talking about. Being careful with your spending. Don't paralyze yourself with debt and overspending. Have a nice little cushion set aside. During your capital investments, you might be leaning on your savings. You might be leaning on a second job. Maybe you'll have a second job, not just the farm, but maybe you pick up something on the side to generate cash so you can make the investment in equipment. So, what are the takeaways that, I'm trying to convey in this video? Of course, one of them is you need to spend less than what you're taking in order to see a profit. In order to get that wad of cash set aside for repairs, fertilizer, an opportunity buy, maybe it's a hay wagon like this. The other thing is that capital investment is necessary. Whether it's a barn, a tractor, or some of this equipment. The key, though, is not to invest so heavily that you're just completely paralyzed by having zero money or maxed out in debt. You have no cushion whatsoever. Lastly, I would say, from a cash flow standpoint, be patient, because if you've got good cash flow, if you got revenue coming in, and the spending going out, if you're good at managing that and holding back a little bit, managing maybe some capital investment from your day job, if you're patient, then you're in the driver's seat. And so when an implement comes available, like this Krone did, and really everything we've got up here, when that deal comes along, you spend your time prior to buying studying all this stuff like an exam, and you have your cash laid aside, and then when the deal comes along, you jump on it like an impulse buyer and you flow cash into it, but you haven't interrupted the cash flow going through your farm. You've still got some left over. You've got money coming in, and you got money going out. I would also say, don't necessarily depend, and again, I'm talking about a small farm, somebody with a day job, and maybe this doesn't apply, or maybe this applies to all small farms, but, don't necessarily depend on the harvest that's coming that's coming, let's say in the fall, when you spend money in the spring. So, we were very fortunate this year, as I've talked in my videos. We've had this barn full of hay over the summer, and then in the winter, we emptied it out. Actually, midway through the summer, we sold a pile of hay, and then we backfilled in with second cutting. But we still have some hay left over, as you can see. It's not a lot, but we don't make any decisions about future equipment based on what we may or may not do in the future harvest. And so I would say, if you do spend everything that you make and you're reinvesting it back into your business, let's say you made, $1,000 and you put $1,000 right back into the business, you still got your day job. You still got your day job income. Hopefully, you might have some money set aside to do that impulse buying and in a controlled way. But, I would just say don't rely necessarily on future earnings, because there might be a drought. There might be a piece of equipment that breaks. There may be something that comes along that interrupts that cash flow. And if you're hanging out there totally dependent on that, then you may find yourself losing the farm. And I have another video, you can find it, 4 types of farmers, and one of those 4 types of farmers is the one that loses their shirt, whether it's through their own fault or no fault of their own. But you know, be careful with your you know, how you project and predict future earnings, because especially in farming, it may or may not be it may or may not turn out the way you want. Hopefully this video would be of help, and I've got some other videos. I'll probably make a playlist at some point, but be sure to check out the 4 types of farmers video, and then we're going to have videos on starting a farm. We're going to have videos on you know, whether cash or credit is good or bad. There's a lot of different opinions on that. As I think of different topics over a period of months, we'll probably make a video. But you know, again, it takes money to make money. You have to have cash flowing through your operation. You can't get to a place where there is no cash flowing or available cash to spend, because then you're in a really precarious position. So I'll just kind of leave it there, and feel free to comment. Again, I hope this video was something of interest. It's kind of a difficult video to make. You know, I sort of do this off the cuff. I don't have notes or anything like that. I can just kind of walk around and I look at what I've got and what we have here on this farm and how we came to have it and how we manage it. This is totally my perspective. You know, your mileage may vary. I don't, there's, you know, no warranty expressed or implied. I'm just sharing my thoughts about, you know, how to manage your cash flow on the farm. So with that, we'll talk to you later.